My wife cheated, got pregnant, demanded divorce and alimony. I exposed her to her church, ruining her reputation and getting her expelled for the first 4 years of our marriage. My wife, let's call her Jen, and I felt like we were doing well. We met back in college. She was gorgeous as hell and seemed genuinely interested in my ambitions rather than just chasing a party lifestyle. I was working on my business degree while she studied education, and we hit it off right away. After graduation, I launched my own consulting business. The first couple of years were brutal, 80-plus-hour weeks, constant stress over making rent, the whole thing. But Jen was incredibly supportive. She'd bring me energy drinks at 2 a.m., give me pep talks when clients ghosted me, and basically did all that girlfriend of the year stuff. She even offered to put her teaching career on hold to help me build something big. At the time, it felt like the most selfless thing anyone had ever done for me. Looking back, I should have noticed the red flag waving right in my face. Once my business took off and we moved into a great house in a nice neighborhood, Jen became deeply involved with a local church. She started leading women's groups, organizing charity events, posting Bible verses all over Instagram, and constantly talking about family values and the sanctity of marriage. But by the 4th year, things started to feel off. It began with little things. She stopped asking about my day, and our conversations became robotic, like she was just checking off boxes rather than actually listening. I'd ask simple questions, like how Bible study went or who showed up, and she'd give short, vague answers, clearly eager to change the subject. Then, something really caught my attention, her sudden obsession with our finances. Before, she was perfectly happy just using the credit cards and never cared about business details. Now, she was asking specific questions. How much did we make last quarter? What's the company worth? Do we have assets she didn't know about? At first, I figured she was just taking an interest, maybe wanting to get more involved. But then I noticed her snapping pictures of financial statements I'd left out. One night, I caught her in my office, digging through my files while I was asleep. She claimed she was just organizing, but I saw her scrolling through documents on her phone. Tension started building. Her behavior kept escalating. Her routine became weird. Random late nights. Weekend trips that didn't add up. She'd leave the house in one outfit and come back in another, brushing it off with a casual, "Oh, I spilled something." One night, I pointed out how we hadn't spent much time together lately and how distant she seemed. She just rolled her eyes and said, "You're imagining things," not even bothering to make eye contact. Then she became ultra protective of her phone. She bought new, sexier clothes, but I never saw her wear them. Her stories weren't lining up. She mentioned restaurants in cities she hadn't been to. She had receipts for a hotel room when she claimed she'd gone on a trip with 4 other women. I didn't want to believe it. I told myself I was just overthinking things because of work stress. Then, one night, she came home late. Her hair was messy, her makeup was smudged, and there was a faint scent on her, something strong, almost like cologne. I don't wear cologne. Casually, I asked, "Long night?" She barely looked at me as she kicked off her heels. "Yeah, Bible study ran late, then we grabbed dinner. You know how it is." Except, I didn't. Bible study always ended at 8 p.m. But suddenly, she was strolling in past midnight like it was normal. "Smells like someone spilled cologne on you," I said, watching her reaction. That's when her whole posture shifted, not guilty, but defensive. She scoffed, crossed her arms, and shot back, "Oh, so now you're paying attention? Maybe if you weren't always at the office, you'd actually know what's going on in my life." That wasn't an answer. It was a deflection. And it worked. She flipped it around, making it my fault. I could have pushed, but I didn't. I already knew how it would go. If I accused her, she'd cry, twist the story, and somehow make me the bad guy for being paranoid and neglectful. I wasn't going to let her control the narrative. So, the time in the world. She was scrambling now, trying to regain control of the situation. I could see it in the way her hands fidgeted, the way her eyes darted around, searching for an angle. But she had no idea just how deep I had dug. I let the silence hang for a moment, then leaned in slightly. "I've got photos, Jen. Texts. Receipts. Even a nice little recording of you telling Eric how you were going to leave me and take me for everything I've got." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, I saw real panic in her eyes. She had walked into this conversation thinking she was in control. Now, she was realizing she had just stepped into a trap. You went through my phone," she finally stammered. I laughed. "Oh, sweetheart. I didn't have to. You left everything out in the open. Your iPad. Your texts. Your careless little hotel receipts. You really thought I wouldn't notice?" She clenched her fists. "That's illegal. You can't just, actually, I can." And I did. And now, thanks to you so graciously confessing to infidelity before filing for divorce, I don't owe you a damn cent. The color drained from her face completely. I stood up, stretching like I had just finished a long, satisfying workout. So, let's get this straight. You thought you could cheat, lie, and then milk me for alimony? Hate to break it to you, Jen, but you just screwed yourself over. She was frozen, her brain trying to catch up to the nightmare she had just walked into. You don't understand, she finally whispered. I understand perfectly, I cut in. You wanted to leave? Good. Pack your things. You can go right now. And don't even think about taking anything I paid for. She didn't move, still in shock. I smirked. I'd also recommend you tell Eric to get a second job. You're gonna need it. With that, I walked out of the room, leaving her sitting there, speechless. I had spent years thinking she was my partner, the love of my life. But in reality, she had been plotting against me for months, thinking she was the mastermind of some grand plan. She thought she was playing the game. Turns out, I had been playing it better. I knew I had to be smart about this. Instead of confronting her, I started gathering evidence. I monitored our credit card statements, tracked her location history, she had left her iPad unlocked, and, pro tip, most people never sign out of their accounts. Sure enough, every Tuesday and Thursday, she spent exactly 2 to 3 hours at the same apartment complex across town. That Thursday, I decided to leave work early. I parked across the street and waited. Right on schedule, at 2 p.m., Jen pulled in. 10 minutes later, another car parked beside her, a tall, gym bro type with a cliché tribal tattoo on his arm. I took photos as they walked inside, all touchy and comfortable, like they had no reason to hide. I sat in my car, seething, watching the woman I had built my life around walk into another man's apartment with the same energy she once had for me. Every instinct told me to storm in and expose them. But anger is loud, revenge is quiet. When she left 2 hours later, I took more photos, capturing their goodbye kiss. That was it. No more doubts. The woman I loved was gone. His name was Eric. I found out through her text messages when she left her phone unlocked one night. He worked at her church, probably as a youth pastor. The irony was suffocating. Still, I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I kept collecting proof, screenshots of messages, more photos, even hotel receipts I found in her purse. The most painful discovery wasn't just the affair itself, it was how long she had been planning my downfall. I read through months of messages between them. My stomach turned. This wasn't some spontaneous mistake. I'm just waiting for the right moment. He's too busy to notice. Once I file, I'll push for alimony. He won't see it coming. She wasn't just leaving me, she was setting up her new life while making sure I paid for it. That's when I decided she would leave with nothing. I met with my accountant and kept things casual, just talking about restructuring my finances. Over the next few weeks, I made key moves. I prepaid my office lease, paid off business debts, and adjusted my salary so less of my income was personal. I wasn't hiding money, I was just making sure she didn't get more than she deserved. I also set up a new personal account and slowly built a cushion, small enough not to raise suspicion. Then, out of nowhere, she did me a favor, she blew up her own plan. One random Tuesday, I came home, and she was waiting for me on the couch, looking strangely satisfied. Mike, we need to talk. I already knew what was coming, but I played dumb. What's up? I'm pregnant. My heart pounded. We hadn't been intimate in months. It's not yours. I've been seeing someone else. I want a divorce. She said it so casually, like she was ordering takeout. 5 years of marriage, tossed away without a shred of guilt. My hands clenched at my sides. Every instinct told me to throw my evidence in her face, to expose her lies right then and there. But then I realized, this was perfect. She thought she was in control. She thought she was ending things on her terms. I smirked, watching the flicker of confusion in her eyes. She expected anger, maybe even tears. Instead, I was calm. You'll still be paying me alimony, she added. I gave up my career for you. You owe me. I locked eyes with her. Jen, I said slowly, did you really think I wouldn't know about Eric? Her face went pale. Tuesdays and Thursdays, right? 2 to 3 hours. Same apartment complex. Same parking spot. You didn't even try to mix it up. You really thought I was that stupid? She stiffened, her jaw tightening. I don't know what you're talking about. I leaned back, stretching my arms along the couch. Bible study, huh? Must be one hell of a lesson plan if it involves lingerie and a hotel room. And Eric? Real winner you picked there. Youth pastor, right? Wonder how his congregation would feel about him knocking up a married woman while preaching family values. She sat up straighter, her eyes darting around as if looking for an escape. How long were you going to play me, Jen? I tilted my head. You and your little boyfriend were waiting for the right moment, right? Planning to milk me dry before running off together? What was it you said? He won't see it coming? Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. I didn't let her recover. I stood. Let's get one thing clear, you are not walking away from this a winner. You're not taking a damn thing from me that I don't let you have. She tried to regain control, forcing a confident tone. It's the law, Mike. You can fight it all you want, but you'll lose. I smirked. If you say so. She thought she was playing the ultimate power move. But in reality, she had just walked into my trap. Over the next 2 weeks, Jen moved in with Eric and filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences, a fancy way of saying I want to sleep around without guilt. I met with multiple lawyers. Most told me the same thing, no fault state. You're screwed. But then I found one, Paul, who didn't sugarcoat things. I won't lie, he said. You'll probably have to pay something. But we can work to minimize the damage. I showed him my financials. He raised an eyebrow. Interesting timing on these expenses. He didn't say more, but I could tell he knew what I'd done. Then, I played my next card. Courts might not care about cheating, but her church sure would. I stayed calm during proceedings, letting her believe she was winning. Her lawyer painted her as a devoted wife who sacrificed her career for my success. Then my lawyer revealed the evidence, her affair, the pregnancy, and the fact that she was already living with Eric. Her attorney jumped in, smugly reminding the judge that this is a no-fault state. As if that erased everything. The judge sighed, clearly uninterested. Given her financial dependence, Mr. Walker will pay $4,500 per month for 4 years, or until Mrs. Walker remarries. Jen smirked at me from across the room, as if she had one. But what she didn't know. I had already planned my next move. She moved in with Eric, which meant alimony could be challenged. I hired a private investigator, gathering proof of their shared expenses. 3 months later, I filed for an alimony modification. In court, the evidence was undeniable. The judge ruled, spousal support is hereby terminated, effective immediately. Jen was stunned. She had thought she was securing a financial safety net, now, she was getting nothing. As we walked out, she whispered, "You planned this." I smiled. "You were right about one thing, Jen. I didn't see it coming, at first. But once I did." I shrugged. "Well, let's just say, neither did you." As we passed, she muttered quietly, "Should have just agreed to my terms from the start." Then, right in front of me, she called Eric. "Baby, it's done." "We won," she giggled. "He has to pay." "I told you the judge wouldn't care about the other stuff." I said nothing, just watched her walk away, believing she had pulled off the ultimate deception. But the game was only getting started. I paid the first alimony check on time. No complaints, no arguments. I even sent a polite email, "Payment sent. Please confirm receipt." Jen seemed surprised. She undoubtedly expected me to be bitter, to fight, to give her more ammunition. Instead, I played the ideal ex-husband, polite, timely with payments, aloof but not aggressive. She had no idea what was coming. Jen wasn't just a member of Harvest Community Church, she was their poster child. She led the women's ministry, organized marriage retreats, and stood on stage throughout services discussing God's plan for holy matrimony. Her father was a deacon, her mother ran Sunday school, the entire family portrayed a wonderful Christian image. And I knew they'd throw her under the bus the moment they discovered who she truly was. I had everything, DNA test results, time-stamped images of her and Eric, screenshots of their explicit texts, hotel receipts. I even had a recording of her mocking her religious friends for being uptight prudes. That one was especially juicy. I put everything in a neat, professional folder and attached a cover letter. To the elders at Harvest Community Church, I regret bringing this to your attention, but as a fellow Christian, I believe it is my responsibility. My ex-wife, Jennifer Walker, who oversees multiple ministries in your church, has been engaging in behavior that defies your church's principles. I have provided documentation of her infidelity, which began during our marriage and resulted in a pregnancy that isn't mine, as proven by DNA testing. Jennifer is now living with this man and receiving considerable alimony from me. I share this not out of spite but out of concern for the integrity of your ministry. Respectfully, Michael Walker. I dropped off the box early Sunday morning when no one was present. Then I returned home and waited for the storm to hit. The Sunday after I sent my small care package, my phone blew up. Dude, WTF did you do? Pastor just called an emergency elder meeting before service. Jen is losing it. I simply turned off my phone and went back to sleep. It felt fantastic, not going to lie. Later that afternoon, I received a voicemail from Jen. She was shouting so loudly that I had to hold the phone away from my ear. You absolute piece of, how could you do this to me? They kicked me out of women's ministry. My dad won't even look at me. You've ruined everything. I deleted it without calling back. I don't need that negativity in my life. More messages arrived throughout the week, each more urgent than the last. Her church friends ignored her. Her parents were taking time to pray about the matter, which is church talk for "we're disappointed in you." The Christian school where she volunteered begged her not to return. Even Eric was getting cold feet. Apparently, he didn't sign up for all this turmoil. He thought he was getting a loving woman and a solid alimony check. Instead, he became a social outcast with a baby on the way and a lot of baggage. By Friday, he had kicked her out of his flat. So much for pure love, right? Jen was summoned to a formal disciplinary hearing with the church elders 1 week after I dropped my evidence. I knew because she called me, sobbing. Mike, please. They're going to publicly discipline me, she screamed. Do you know what that means? They'll announce it to the entire congregation. Everyone will know. They already know, Jen, I replied bluntly. That's kind of how church gossip works. My dad might lose his position over this. My family has been at Harvest for 3 generations, she cried. Should have thought about that before you *ed the youth pastor. She fell silent for a second. Then, in a soft, shaky voice, he's not talking to me anymore? Who, your dad? No. Eric. Her voice wavered. He said this is too much drama. That I misled him about the divorce being clean and simple. I couldn't help but laugh. So, your soulmate bailed the second things got tough? Shocking. I have nowhere to go, Mike. My parents won't let me stay with them. None of my friends are returning my calls. Sounds like a personal problem. Can I come home? Just until I figure things out? This woman had an incredible amount of courage. It's not your home anymore, Jen. You gave that up when you decided to cheat. She started crying again, big, theatrical sobs. What am I supposed to do? Get a hotel. You've got alimony money coming in. Figure it out. Then I hung up. Cold? Maybe. But after what she pulled, my sympathy tank was completely empty. The church hearing took place Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, the news had spread throughout the neighborhood. Jen had been formally identified as an adulteress and dismissed from all church responsibilities. The preacher even dedicated an entire sermon to the sacredness of marriage and the consequences of sin, never mentioning Jen by name, but making it abundantly clear who he was talking about. Her parents took a break from church leadership. Her sister postponed her wedding, which was set to take place at Harvest. The entire family was essentially in exile. And Eric? He'd already requested a transfer to another church site in a faraway state, leaving Jen pregnant and alone. I remained on the sidelines. I didn't have to lift a finger. The community she admired most had done all the difficult lifting for me. Small religious communities are tied to everything. When Jen's church life collapsed, it set off a chain reaction even I couldn't have predicted. First, the private Christian school where she worked part-time had budget constraints and canceled her position. The principal couldn't even look her in the eye when he told her. Then her volunteer gigs dried up. The Crisis Pregnancy Center, where she counseled young women, determined that her current circumstances made her a bad role model. The organization where she conducted donation drives? They were restructuring their volunteer program. Every aspect of her identity was gradually chipped away. And I just kept paying the alimony check every month. On schedule. 3 weeks after the church controversy surfaced, I got a text from our former neighbor. Jen's living in her car. Walmart parking lot. I didn't respond. But later that night, I drove past. Sure enough, her old Honda was parked in the far corner of the lot. I could see her silhouette in the driver's seat, lit by her phone screen. The following day, she called again. I lost my job, she admitted, her voice flat. No tears this time. Just hollow defeat. That sucks. The baby's due in 5 months. No one will hire me. My parents still won't talk to me. I said nothing. I've been sleeping in my car, she finally acknowledged. I can't afford both a car payment and an apartment on just the alimony. Sounds like poor financial planning. She breathed sharply. Is this what you wanted? To see me completely destroyed? I considered it for a second. You know what? Yeah. Pretty much. I was stupid. I made a mistake. I never meant to hurt you. I cut her off. I don't care. She swallowed back a sob. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I smirked. Cool. Good luck with your new life. And that's when I decided to play my last card. It was time to end this on my terms. Actually, I added, keeping my tone casual, I might have a solution that works for both of us. What kind of solution? Jen asked, suddenly attentive. I could almost hear the desperation in her voice. I'm getting tired of writing these monthly checks, I said, stretching the words out lazily. And my business is expanding. I'm looking at opening an office in Singapore. Might move there for a while. What does that have to do with me? Well, international alimony enforcement is complicated. I let the words sink in. And I've been talking to a new lawyer who thinks we might have grounds to revisit the settlement, based on some creative interpretations of the law. Of course, that was complete crap. But Jen didn't know that. And she was in no position to challenge me. What are you saying? Her voice was tight, panicked. I'm saying I'd like to buy you out. One lump sum payment instead of monthly alimony for the next 4 years. She hesitated, probably calculating. How much? She finally asked. $90,000. Cash. Tax-free. You sign a document releasing me from all future obligations, and the money's yours today. Jen had no idea I could afford that lump sum. The financial moves I'd made earlier had safeguarded a large chunk of my money, and my business was already recovering. To her, $90,000 felt like a lifeline. But in reality, it was less than half of what I would have given her over the full alimony period. A huge reduction. But for someone living in her car, pregnant, and broke, it probably felt like winning the lottery. I don't know, she hesitated. My lawyer said, your lawyer isn't sleeping in a Walmart parking lot, I reminded her. And this offer expires in 24 hours. After that, I start the process to challenge the alimony ruling, and you get nothing while we battle it out in court for the next year or two. More silence. I could almost hear the wheels turning in her mind. Can I think about it? Sure. You've got until this time tomorrow. Then I'm moving forward with the challenge. I hung up without waiting for an answer. 2 hours later, she called back. I'll take it. She replied gently, smart choice. I'll have the paperwork ready in the morning. Meet me at my lawyer's office at 9 a.m. Mike. Her voice sounded tiny. Thank you. I nearly laughed. Don't thank me, Jen. This isn't mercy, it's business. The following morning, she arrived at the lawyer's office looking like pure hell. Dark circles under her eyes, unkempt hair, and wearing the same clothes I had seen through the car window. My lawyer had the documentation ready, a full release from all future alimony obligations in exchange for a one-time payment. I had already prepared the cashier's check. Jen barely read the contract before signing. When my lawyer slid the check across the table, her hands trembled as she took it. So, that's it, she asked. We're done. I nodded. Completely done. I don't ever want to hear from you again. She looked like she wanted to say something more, but instead just nodded and walked out. As the door shut behind her, my lawyer shook his head. You know, most guys in your position wouldn't have offered her anything. It was worth 90 grand to be free of her forever, I replied. And I meant it. The monthly payments hadn't hurt me financially, but they were a constant reminder of how she had deceived me. Now, I was entirely cut loose. Free to move on without her shadow hanging over me. Besides, I knew Jen. She'd burn through that money in 6 months, tops. Then she'd have nothing. No alimony. No job prospects. No backup plan. Meanwhile, I'd be building my empire, living my best life, and never looking back. About 6 months later, I ran into her at a gas station. It wasn't planned, just one of those random occurrences. She looked rough. Still pregnant, or maybe pregnant again, I didn't ask or care. She was driving a beat-up old Civic, nothing like the nice car she had during our marriage. When she spotted me filling up my new BMW, she froze like a deer in headlights. I gave her a polite nod. She hesitated, then walked over. There was an awkward pause before she finally said, "How are you?" I shrugged. "Business is good. Life is good." She nodded and looked down at her feet. That's good." More silence. Then she admitted, "The money's gone. I had to pay off debt, and the rest went to rent and food." I just stared at her. "Not my problem." "I know," she sighed. "I don't even know why I'm telling you this." I finished pumping gas. "Well, good luck with everything." I was about to get in my car when she spoke again. "I'm sorry, Mike. For everything. I really am." I looked at her for a long moment. Was it satisfying to see her like this? Honestly, not as much as I expected. I didn't feel bad for her, though. Too little, too late, Jen. Then I got into my car and drove away. Haven't seen her since. As for me? Life's been great. I met an amazing woman, successful, independent, no games, no BS. She owns her own marketing agency. Works hard, plays hard. We moved in together 3 months ago. No urgency to marry again, once bitten, twice shy, but honestly, I could see it happening with her someday. She's the real deal. I try not to keep tabs on Jen, but in a small town, news travels fast. And we still have mutual acquaintances who occasionally send updates my way. How long did it take her to burn through $90,000? 4 months. She paid off some hidden credit card debt, bought a cheap apartment, and blew the rest trying to maintain her old lifestyle instead of adjusting to reality. Classic Jen, never knew how to budget. She had the baby, a boy. Eric is legally obligated to pay child support, but from what I've heard, he's a deadbeat who consistently falls behind. As expected, he moved to Ohio and has little to no contact with the child. Guess his calling to youth ministry didn't extend to his own kid. Shocking. Jen tried to continue her teaching career, but her reputation followed her. Christian schools wouldn't take her back, and public schools preferred candidates with more recent experience. Last I heard, she was working at a call center. Barely above minimum wage. Karma? Her family? They eventually forgave her after 8 months of avoiding her, but their relationship is strained. They help with the baby sometimes, but not without constant lectures about life choices and consequences. Her sister keeps her distance, probably worried that Jen's reputation will damage her own standing in the church. Jen tried to rejoin the church community, but it didn't go well. She's allowed to attend services, but all leadership roles are permanently off limits. No more women's ministry. No more marriage retreats. No social status. She sits in the back and leaves as soon as the service ends. The ultimate irony? A mutual friend told me Jen now admits she should have worked on her marriage instead. Too late. Meanwhile, I'm thriving. Business is booming. My relationship is solid. And I'm finally doing things I never had time for. I got my pilot's license. Took up mountain biking. Started learning guitar. Lesson learned, sometimes, the worst thing that happens to you leads to the best version of your life. You just have to be willing to burn the bridges that need burning. And never look back. So yeah. I guess that's it. I probably won't post any more updates because, honestly, I'm not thinking about Jen much these days. I have better things to focus on. Oh, and one last thought, if you're going through something like this, record everything. Take screenshots. Save emails. Collect evidence. It might not help in court, no-fault divorce laws and all, but knowledge is power. And you never know when you might need that power. Goodbye, Reddit. Thanks for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so, and don't forget to hit the notification bell for more shocking real-life stories happening around you.